Hello and welcome back to our next episode in our bite-sized tutorials interactions. If you remember from the previous video, we managed to make our door animate, and we managed to make it open and close as and when we wanted to, but at the moment we don't have any interaction from the user. So that's where I'm going to add that in now. So to start with, we need to put something in to register a key press from our player. So if we go into your content drawer and your first person blueprints there, and go to your first person character and double click, and mine's opened on a different monitor. Let me drag that across. Okay, these here are the default inputs that come with the first person character, and basically it takes an enhanced input, this one's look, and it does something with it to aim. Yep, and that's basically what these do. The same with move and the same with jump. Okay, now we don't have anything in there at the moment to control our interaction, so we're going to add that. So if you come to your content drawer, and if it's loaded the same as mine, it's put the input stuff in a separate folder. So in your content folder you'll have one called input. So if you double click that, ignore this one, that's the one I've made to make this work. You'll have IMC default and IMC mouse look. Yeah, ignore that one. And if you go into the folder for actions, you'll have these: jump, look, mouse look, and move. You won't have IA interact, again, that's what I've made, but you'll have these. If you don't know what these are, basically these are proxies. These create these events. They're event fires. So these are kind of like a proxy that you program into one of these, that proxy, and pick up your controls and what key mappings you've got and so forth. But I can't explain that very well the way I'm talking, so we'll start from scratch. So if you jump into your actions and either click add or right click in the empty space here, go to input and input action, and call this IA underscore interact. I'm going to put one on the end because I've already got one, but I'm going to build this one just to show you what it looks like. And then double click on it, and this is the screen you'll see. And to be fair, we haven't got to do anything inside here, nothing whatsoever. All I will point out at the moment is the value type here is bool, digital boolean, true, false, on, off, 0, 1. That's all it does, and that's what a key press is. It's either key press true or key press false, and that's what we want. So there are different actions in here for axis. So if you've got a mouse, you've got left and right, or up and down, or you've got 2D axis, which does left and right and up or down, and a 3D vector, which has a third input, which is probably due maybe a throttle or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know, but the most common are the top three, and we're interested in digital bool, and that's how it comes. So just hit save and close it. So you now have your interact. Let me just delete that one because I already have mine, and just to show you, interact, it's exactly the same. Save and close. So I have my interact, but at the moment we can't use it direct. We have to map it to what's called the context, which was in the upper folder for input there, and it's in these. Now let me just open this default one. This is what controls all the keys for the third person character. As you can see, they've got a space bar mapped, okay, and that's mapped to the interrupt action, input action, jump. Same with the gamepad face button bottom, so I'm guessing that's A. That's also mapped to that, so you can use either spacebar or the gamepad button that this is specified. I think it is the Yeah, I think it's the A button. Then we've got move, and you've got W, S, A and D for your movements, but also up, down, left and right, and also the thumbstick to the axis. I won't go into details how these are mapped at the moment, because that's probably a full tutorial on itself. But again, we've got another one here, IA look, which is using the thumbstick. Yeah, so that's kind of what it does. So what we're going to do, we're going to make our own. We're not going to add to this to confuse things. There's one there, that's the mouse look one. But again, rather than confusing, we're going to make our own. So this is the one I've made, but I'm going to make a new one just to show you. And right click, empty space, input, input mapping context. We call that IMC underscore interact, and I'll call mine 1 for now. Okay, but mine's just interact. Once you've done that, double click it, and as you can see, there's not much here, it's empty. So we've got to add one in. So we're going to click the plus here on mappings. It's none at the moment. Click the box, and we want our interact. Then what comes up is this here. So you can basically choose a type of input from this drop down box. So you can go keyboard and you want, say, tab, and it will do, you know, your interact. Or you can go down and scroll down and click, say, D. But to make this quicker, the easiest way is to click this little input value here. It looks like a keyboard. It means you can press the value you want. So if I click in there, it goes yellow, press E, and it chooses E for me. And that's it. Because it's a basic Boolean, I haven't got to map anything to it. There is some overrides and things that you can put in here, some triggers and modifiers and type of behaviors, but because it's Boolean, we do not need that. So that's all we need. So if I come out of that and show you my interact there, I'll show you it's identical. Yeah, I'm just going to delete my duplicate, so don't you delete yours. That's my duplicate. Delete. So you've got your IMC interact and you've got your interact action. So there's your action, which is your proxy event, and this is the mapping that maps keys to those proxy events. Now we need to send them through to here, and the way that's done is let's see if it's done on here. I don't think it is. It's done in the player controller by the looks of things. So we need to get the player controller that's linked to this character, and in general I think it's in the first person blueprints and the first person player controller. There we go. So if you open that up, double click. Okay, so you will have, if I just disconnect this, this is the one you are going to be adding, you will have this. This is for touch UI, so it will do that. I'll only add them in if it's not a local player controller, it uses touch UI. So ignore that, leave that there, we're not going to mess with that. Then it comes out to a sequence. Yours won't have a missing input, I've added that, remember. So you'll have your regular mappings, which if you zoom in says IMC default. So if you come to your draw, input, IMC default, and it's mapped by getting the local player subsystem and adding this context to it. So now IMC default is available to this player controller. Further down we have some mappings for the touch controls, the widget controls. Again, we're not going to mess with that. And this one here is for the mouse, and it's only put on if they're not using a touch screen, because I think they conflict. So, but again, all it's doing is adding this context to the enhanced input local player system, this context, which is the mouse look, yeah, which if you look in here, mouse look. So we're going to add our own in. So what you want to do is this sequence here, add another one in, and what you will find is like yours will be like that. And if I remove pin, right, so yours will be like that. Click the plus to add the pin. And what I'll do is control, click and drag down. The only reason I do this is because I've moved mine up here. So this was, oh, not that. This was here. I've extended this up and I've moved that up. I'm putting mine into here. Okay. Here's my code here. So what we want to do is drag off this middle pin and type mapping context. It's one of those, isn't it? Sorry, yeah, it's one of those. You might have to turn off, you might have to right click on the empty space and go add mapping context. No, even context sensitive might have to be switched off. Yes, turn off the context sensitive and add mapping context is there. Yeah, or let me just switch that back on because I don't like that being off. You could just get this and copy it. So the best way actually to take this with it, because you need that as well. So if you hold control and click on those two, move your mouse for some empty space and press control and the D key. Yep, and it makes a copy of what we've just done there. I'll bring that down. We're going to hook that in there, and then before we save and close, we're going to change this mapping context to our new one, IMC Interact. So click on there, IMC Interact, and there you go. You have now added that context in. I'm going to delete that because it's exactly the same thing. I've just shown you how to do it. We've added in a new mapping context, yeah, for our interaction. So if I click on both of those and press C, add interact mapping context. I think I had held the key down when I did it. So there you go. We have our own mapped context with our new interaction mapping here with just the one interact proxy there. Okay, so now that makes it available to the player. So if we close the controller down, we can now bring that in here. So I'm not sure if I've done this in here or whether I did it in the player controller. Let me just double check, because I may have put it in the player controller. No, I don't think I did. No, I haven't. No, that's good. So close the player controller, and down here I have added in my interact. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave that there on the screen. I'm just going to alt click there and I'm going to delete that. Right, so right click in empty space and type in IA_interact or whatever you called yours, and you want this one with a little like arrow on it because that's the event. Okay, click there and the event's created. Now if you use triggered, sometimes it can repeat the key, and we don't really want to do that. We don't want to repeat the key constantly. So we've got a choice. We can either start the interaction on the start of the press of the key, or we can do the interaction on the completion of the key. I'm going to do it on the completion, so when you let go of the key it will run the interaction. So what we need to do, we need to do a check, and we need to check if we can interact with something, and the best way to do that is we stored in our BPC trace, we stored whether there's an interaction there or not. So if we click on our BPC trace, okay, and we've got this interact target, and that's set to an object if we can interact with it, and removes it if we can't. So let's drag this in, and it automatically creates this. Drag off and get interact target. Yep, get interact target. Okay, and then all we need to do is check whether that's a valid object. Now there's two ways of doing this. You can do the is valid, which so you drag off here, so is valid, and you use the one with the F, which makes this node, and then you go to a branch. Or Alternatively, drag off and type is valid and the one with the question mark, and the difference is it's kind of like a Boolean instruction by itself. It has valid or not valid, which is the same as true or false. So if we plug that straight in there, and then we need to run our interact function, sorry, not function, our interface. We need to then call our function. So basically, we've got to call the interface function, and the interface function is readily available from every actor, or at least on the player, I know that, but it should be there readily available for every actor. So all we need to do, if this is valid, we need to drag off and we need to type in fn, and if you see there, it's already got interact message, not the get. You want this fn interact message, and what that does, that calls a message to the interact function, but targeted directly at a particular target, a particular actor, and we've already got that because it's here. This is our target actor, so this is the thing we're interacting with. It's valid, so we want to target that as our actor. So if we send that through to there, we're now sending a message to interact with this. But it also wants the player character, and that's easy enough because this is the player character. All you got to do is drag off and type in self and say get a reference to self, and what that does is checks if our trace has got a valid interaction target. If it does, we're going to send the message interact to that, just that target. We can send multiple targets if we want to, but it's only that one we're targeting, and we're sending it through that it's us that's doing it, this player character self. Yep, because remember, we need that for certain interactions to get where the player is and so forth, when we know which way the door's opening, obviously, and it could be used for other stuff later on. And that's basically what it does. If you compile and save, that now should allow you to interact with the door when you press the E key. So we shall, now I've gotten rid of this one, this is identical to this in all senses. So hello, it's editing head back on again. I was about to demonstrate the door interacting and realized during editing I forgot a vital step. So I'll just get quickly to it. Open your door. So it was, I called it BP Modern Door 01. Yeah. And interfaces. Here we've done the interact text, but we haven't done anything with this, the fn interact, and it will receive the message, but it won't do anything with it because we've not implemented it. That's why it's yellow. So double click, and then all you want to do from this is you want to drag off this and interact with the door. So if we expand this, we get this door interact, remember, which was this. That will allow us to open and close, toggle the door. So back into your event graph. So drag off and type it, or even easier, drag fn interact onto there, and player character onto player character, and that's it. Okay, and we'll get back to the video now. I've fixed that little problem. So we come out, I come up to the door and I press E, it opens, and it closes, and it opens. You should now have the same thing, as long as you've set up the actions and you've mapped the context, and you're using, make sure you're using the right player controller. If you've changed your player controller, make sure you add that mapping context inside that new player controller. But now you have control over opening and closing that door with the E key. And if you go into your input IMC interact and change this key to something else, I'll press Q, save. If I run this, If I come up now and press E, nothing. If I press Q, there you go. Q now does the interact. So that means now, whenever your player programs a key, because at some point when if you're doing all this interact and things to do this properly, you can set up menu screens for users to map their own keys. So as long as the correct key is mapped, you can open the door. Q doesn't work, E. There we go. That's as simple as it needs to be for interacting now with your player. If you wanted it to be the mouse button, you could be the mouse button. Let me just open up this. If you click that and then click the left mouse button and save, if I come up, click the left mouse button, there we go, exactly the same thing. That's how easy it is. I will probably do a bite-sized interactions series on inputs. It'll only be a shorter one, obviously, but yeah, that's how simple it is. Really is that easy. We have interaction.